Hey guys, this is Shabam from StocksPoker.com. Today I'm going to be playing 1530 Limit Omaha High-Low Heads Up. This is the second part of my video series, and I'm going to be focusing on equity and power position of heads up hands. So on this hand, I flop an open-ender to the nuts. I hit the nuts on the turn, and I'm just going to fall through on the river. So essentially what I'm going to be doing for this video is play relatively loose on the puck and use my position to gain maximum fold equity and value. Also, if my equity is diminished on the turn, I can use the position to take free cards, which is why my most aggressive street is going to be the flop. So I'm going to be constantly putting pressure on my opponent, opening about 90% of my hands, and pretty much continuation betting around the same rate. This strategy lets us see a lot of showdowns in position, so there might be a few spots where I make fairly light calls. The reason of that is because Omaha high-low is a split game, and with two random heads-up hands, it's much harder to scoop both the high and low. For out of position, I'm going to be relatively tight and try and keep this pot as small as possible without a large equity share in the hand, or a good amount of fold equity. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to be really doing any outside-of-the-box bluffing, so I'm not going to make a play here, which from time to time I do. So out of position, I'm going to be weak tight, which seen in Mike 6's Pot Limit 08 video is a horrible term in Hold'em, but isn't all that bad in Omaha high-low. Here I'm going to stay with the theme of putting pressure on, so I raise with King 4, 8, 9. Going to continuation bet here. The turn brings a Jack, which seems like a good card for a hand. However, T-Balls decides to lead out. So either he has picked up a massive draw and is trying to utilize fold equity, or he has a strong hand in which he doesn't want us to take a free card. We just started playing, so I don't really know his range yet. And we only have a pair of eights with a good kicker, but even if we are ahead, there aren't too many great cards that can fall on the river. So we're just going to give up here. So we flop top two pair with King Jack, and because he limped, I'm going to fire out. I think it's less likely for him to take a stab at the pot since the pot is so small, so I'm going to force him to play if he wants to continue. Here I'm going to stay with the theme of powering the puck. He hasn't shown any real pre-flop aggression, so I'm not going to stop anytime soon, even with lower tier hands like this one. Here I'm going to take a stab at the flop because it's pretty hard for him to carry on, as it's easy to believe that he had no chance for the high as it's a dry board. Ace, Ace, Queen 4, definitely enough equity for a 3-bet. Now this isn't a great flop, but holding two aces makes it less likely that he has a low strong draw. Strong enough to continue on, as well as the fact that a lot of 3-bets made pre-flop are with the holding ace-deuce, so it's definitely a great flop to bet on. Jack, Queen 3-5, easy raise on the puck. Here he leads, so he's pretty much saying he has a strong draw or made hand. We have no real high draws and a weak low draw, which is absolutely dominated by stronger low draws with flush draw, which is a high portion of his range. So it's only $60. I'm just going to let him have it here. Ten Jack 3 doesn't hit a lot of flops all that hard. Had he raised, I would have just dumped it. I'm going to put in a bet here and see what happens. I like this a lot better than check calling, as it gives us somewhat of an idea by his flop actions. So far he seems pretty straightforward. 10-10, 6-8, raise in position. He 3-bets. We pick up a double gut shot to the nuts here. So I'm going to peel one. We miss the turn, and it's pretty much a hand killer. Our 6-8 low is not strong at all, and with the whole board texture, it's very easy for us to be drawing dead, or be in rush shape for the high. Even if our 10s are good here, there's not too many safe cards on the river. So I'm just going to let it go. Ten, 3, 4, 5. We brick out. I could consider leading here as a play, but for this video I'm just going to be weak tight out of position. Ace, Queen, King, Deuce, a great equitable hand. We flop two pair. I'd rather much not have had hit the 2 and would prefer a different low instead. So as he ends up folding, I'd probably take a free turn and either value bet or call on the river had he called the flop. So this is an automatic bet for our opponent regardless of his range as he raised pre-flop, so I'm not going to instantly give him credit for a better hand here. The turn gives us a little more equity in the hand, so we're going to go into check call mode here. He ended up having a low draw and a flush draw. King deuce 7-3. We flopped the nut low draw and a flush draw, so we have tons of equity against a random calling hand. It bricks. I think we have enough equity here to raise, and it doesn't really make sense for him to lead out with king jack there. Now he leads again into the flush. I think I'm just going to call here, well aware that he might have queen 10 or ace 10. And he just has a busted low draw with backdoor spades draw. Here we flop an open-ender and a strong low draw. A check-check would have been disastrous there, as there's a lot of bricks that allow him to continue on with a much improved equity. Ace deuce 3-6, easy raise. We're not too happy about our high hand, but we do have a lot of equity, and probably 3-bet here if he raises. Six, 7, 9, really not all that great. 7 lows and 9s are pretty bad. So here, 9, 3, 5, 7. He only has $70. Okay, so he only has $70. Now, I usually wouldn't do this, but ace, queen, king, 9, double suit is definitely worth getting it in against a lighter range that he's willing to put his last money in with. So I'm going to try and build a pre-flop and just bet any flop that comes. And he has 10, jack, jack, 5. And we brick, so he gets that one. Jack, queen, 4, 5, raise on the puck. Now, I'm going to opt to call here just because I feel that he's frustrated. And although it's not much better than 6, 7, 9, if I hit, I think we can get the rest of his stack. We had a set here. I'm going to check raise and try and put as much money in the pot as possible to get him committed. So he puts it in and ends up being a little coolered with top 2 pair, straight draw, and a flush draw. We fill up, and he's no good. So I'm going to pause it here until I get another opponent. Notice that I have a new theme. It was done by tiltbuster.com, and the avatar was created by Penguin Alulu. So play resumes with a solid opponent, Gator 803. Ace 5 7, definitely enough equity to 3-bet. The flop's not that great, but we're going to keep with the flow. Now the turn brings a scary card, but we're going to take advantage and fire here, just in case he was straggling along with the weak pair that will now fold, in addition to the fact that he didn't raise us on the flop, which a 10 queen or flush draw is very likely to do. I'm still going to fire away. We flop the nuts, and we're going to fast play as to throw our full range in here. It'll allow us to get 3 bets in if he does have a good hand, as well as get paid lightly because of all the draws on board. So hopefully he hit the 6. He calls, and he ended up having a jack-high flush draw and a pair of jacks, no kicker. Here I'm going to throw in a bet as our equity improves, and we're still drawing. You never want to be check calling when you need to improve with the opponent showing weakness. Here I'm going to check call. He decides to check behind. It's kind of interesting that he checked behind with a 10 there, so we'll keep that in mind. This is kind of a bad flop for us, but still pretty hard to check raise this flop, so we're going to bet this flop to hopefully gain the option to take a free card if unimproved, and then take a cheap showdown, but he just folds. Jack, jack, queen, deuce. It's a bottom range hand, so we're just going to let it go. 6, 7, 9, a troublesome hand. If he raised, I would have just let that go as well. King 5, 6, 6, double suited. Raise it up. Here we hit a king and an alright low draw, which isn't much, but does give us enough equity against a random range. Here we hit a set with no low, at the time. I'm going to bet to dissuade weak lows from continuing on, and there's not too many draws. Here he leads, and it's quite confusing. I don't really see any hands that make sense if he had maybe a set of kings. Here I'm going to raise for value as I don't see him scooping us any way possible. So I ended up having second low draw, or sorry, the second made low with a pair of fives. So that's quite interesting. Here I'm just going to give up. I have no real equity in the hand, and I'm out of position. And he checks down, so he's pretty much playing the same strategy. Except I wouldn't be playing deuce, deuce, 9, 10 there. Here raised up with queen, deuce, 4, 4. Here I'm going to continuation bet this. It's just so hard to hit hard enough to continue on, and being out of position either has to put at risk more or be forced to check call without much information, so I definitely like hammering those type of flops. King 5, 6, 8. I'm going to use my position. Here I'm going to continuation bet. Here I'm going to check behind. I think it's more likely that he'd call with a queen. And here we do have enough equity, so if he bet I would have called. He checks and I'm just going to check behind. I don't see him folding on the turn. And if we hit the river, we would have just checked behind. So I don't mind that play. Queen 4, 5, 6. Now he leads again, and we have a pretty bad low draw, no real chance at the high, so we're just going to let that go. Queen, queen, king, ace, he folds. Ace 3, 4, 5, definitely a raise. Now this is an interesting flop. Now because of all the backdoor possibilities, plus with all the draws out, there's so many cards that would scare him, so I like the raise here. Now we pick up a card that has improved our equity quite a bit, at least enough to still be able to fire the turn. On most cards we would have just checked behind. Now if he does lead on this card, I think our only option is to fold, as he's pretty much representing a high hand, as weak lows aren't going to lead out here often. But we check and our two pairs good. Ace king 6 9. If the 6 was a little lower, I'd opt to re-raise. However, he does limp, so going back to that deuce deuce hand, we're going to punish him every time he limps. Here we pick up enough equity to bet, and still enough to bet any turn card that really comes. Not the greatest hand here, but it's somewhat disguised and can still hit pretty hard. We miss here, and we're just going to let it go. Three, 5, 5, 8. Here we're going to lead out. We have enough equity. And bet when we hit here. Now there are a lot of draws that missed, and since we've been betting our full range here, I'm going to value bet here and try and get looked up by a weak 2 pair. If he has straight with an 8, I don't think he can raise, so it'll be one bet regardless. I don't think he's going to be bluffing too much if we check to him. Queen 3, 8, 4. I think he's starting to loosen up a little bit. But we still have a playable hand. So we hit the nuts at the moment. And he checks. I think the best option is to bet here to get full value from low draws and high pairs. And we're going to continue here. Now he leads. Given the way the hand was played, I think the only hand that beats us for high is pocket sevens. It's very likely that he has a low, but discounting the chances of getting scooped, I'm going to raise here just in case he has an ace high flush with no low, in which he does. So yeah, he has the ace high flush. 6, 8, 9, 10 double suited. It does have some equity, And with him being more willing to get it in if we hit, I think makes this a good call. So he has $75, and we hit a piece. So I think my best course of action is to check call and then lead the turn for fold equity. If he has a flush, we're going to get it in anyway, so we just want to try and push him off a low draw and get value from two pairs. And insta bet the river. And he has queen, king, deuce 3. He's kind of short. King 4, 5, 8 isn't a strong hand to try and get it in with, but I think we have enough equity to limp call in position if it goes that way. Now, this is an interesting flop as he leads out. We do have two pair, but the board texture is just so well connected. There are about a million cards that we don't like seeing. Add to the fact that we don't have any low to back up on. So I think this should always be a muck with a pot this small. Queen deuce 6, 7. The 4 helps our low draw a little bit. So I'm going to opt to call here. The jack kills our hand as we have no real chance at the high anymore. However, he checks behind and I'm going to fire as I don't see him being this short and not firing an ace or a strong flush draw. 8, 10, deuce 4. We flop a huge hand. Now, because he's so short, I'm going to try and check behind to induce a bluff and to keep him committed to try and get the rest of his money in. And now I think it's time to just bet. And he folds. So he's really short now. King 10, Jack 3 has enough equity. If we catch any piece, we're just going to get it in. So we're going to get it in here. And he has King 4, Jack, so we're in pretty bad shape. We brick, so we're going to move on. Ace, Queen, Deuce 8, tons of equity, and we raise. Flop comes a deuce, and we're actually going to check it behind as it kills our equity in the hand. Hopefully try and pick up two pair to continue on, but he leads and we're just going to give up. Queen, Queen, Jack 8, enough equity to make a call if he raises. Now he has $93, so I'm going to try and check raise to get him committed. He checks behind, and I'm going to just bet to charge low draws. We don't really want to give him a free card here. 9, 3, 4, 5 has enough equity. He 3 bets. We hit a low wrap, so we're just going to get it in here. And we're going to be betting or calling regardless of the turn. So he bets, and we still have enough equity. He has a high wrap, and he misses, so we take that one down. He reloads rather quickly. Terrible equity here. Just going to fold. Jack 3, 5, 7, enough equity to raise. King 7, 7 with 2 clubs. We're going to bet here because we want to throw our full range and allow him to try and make a check raise steal with a draw, giving us the option on the turn to raise or call. 9, 10, 6, 3 has enough equity. The 6 counterfeits our low draw, so we're just going to dump it. Ten deuce 3, 6. Raise in position. He 3 bets. Now this is kind of close. I think this is where people make quite a bit of mistakes. Right now we don't have anything. I mean, we could pick up a straight draw, but for the most part it's a pretty bad flop for us. With ace deuce and ace 3 being a strong part of his range, we're completely dominated. So it's only $90. I'm just going to fold here. King, King, Jack 6 here. Enough to defend. It's a decent flop. I think we're going to allow him to bet and just check call. He checks behind. I don't see any point of betting here as it's a way head, way behind scenario. He checks again, so now I'm just going to throw in a value bet. So he ended up having jacks, which is one of the few hands I could have called a turn bet and river bet. Queen deuce 6, 6. Raise in position. He leads. Now we have a decent low, but no real high potential, so we're going to raise here and see what he does. If he does 3-bet, he pretty much says that he has a stronger low, as it's pretty bad to jam with a high-only hand here, with lows that complete straights so easily. So in this case, we're in bad shape, so we're just going to let it go. I'm okay with spending that money to see where we were in that hand. Here we're just going to give up. We don't really hit anything, and we're going to let that one go. King, king, 4-4, definitely worth a raise on the puck. It comes 2 spades, and we have an overpair. With this deuce here, we don't really want a 5 or something to peel off and give a possible low draw, so I think it's a must bet. 9-9, 6-8, I don't think there's enough equity, we're going to throw that away. Ace, Jack, Jack, 8, and he 3-bets again. I haven't been really able to see what he's been 3-betting with. We hit an 8, there's an overcard to our jacks, and a draw heavy board, so we're going to let this one go too. Ace, 5-5-6, because he has a really weak limp range, we're going to punish it, as this hits well enough. Here we hit with what should be the best low draw and an open-ender. And we have enough equity to bet pretty much any card on the turn. Here we're going to still fire, even though it's a horrendous hand. He hasn't been check raising too many flops, so given that, we should be able to see cheap streets. Turn's a horrible card. We're just going to check and hope we hit. The 4 connects pretty well with this whole board texture, so I don't see any equity in this hand. Deuce, 3, 4, 6, definitely enough equity to carry on. With a strong low draw and a pair, we could contemplate a check raise here. He checks behind, and we're just going to maximize our value as we only have a pair of 4s. And any card that improves us makes it scary and harder for him to call without a hand. Jack, 4, 5, 7, keep the pressure on. 8-8 deuce with 2 diamonds. We're going to fire away. And he leads the turn. I think that his most likely holding is a hand that has a strong high, but it's vulnerable to the low because he didn't check raise the flop. So I'm going to call with that benefit of having a gut shot. I miss, and I'll just let go. Queen 9, King 5. He's been limping without low draws often, so I don't mind throwing in a bet here and keeping control. And he folds. Jack, 3, 5, 7, raise it up. We're going to raise it here and take the lead. His 3-bet range includes a strong portion of strong low draws. Here we hit a full house, and I'm going to continue. If it was another low, I probably would have just checked behind and then either value bet the river or called on the river to save bets. We're actually going to 3-bet here if he raises. Has a lot of equity. Decent flop, and we're just going to hammer through. Here we pick up the nut low draw and hit a straight, and we're just going to pound, and we take that one down as well. Ace, Queen, Deuce, 6. Ended up having 2 pair and a flush draw. Here, it's kind of close. We have enough backdoor draws, plus the board's so dry that he might check the turn. Here he still bets, but we had enough equity with picked up 6. And here this completes his whole range, so we're just going to let this go. Ace, King, 9, 3. Definitely enough equity to raise out of the big blind. Now, this is a pretty troublesome board, but we have enough equity, a gut shot to the nuts, a backdoor flush draw. If he calls, I'd probably check call unimproved as a bluff catcher. 9, 3, 4, 7. Definitely worth a raise. He 3-bets. Now the deuce is a strong counterfeiter, so we're going to raise to try and get a turn option. Plus there's a lot of draws in which he might check quite a few cards. Turn gives us the nut low, so we're going to definitely fire here. Now he raises. We only have a pair of 7s as a high, so I'm going to call here with the option of betting or raising the river. So now we get counterfeited here and are now beat by high 2 pair with a 3 low combo, so I'm going to check this behind. And he ends up having ace jack queen king with 2 clubs. I don't really see how that can be profitable, unless he thought I had somewhat like a 2 pair hand. But I'm not going to be betting in that spot with 2 pair, so I don't really see any benefit of doing that. I think that's an easy check call down, unimproved, and pray line. Kind of weird. Ace queen den deuce, going to 3-bet if he raises. And he sits out, so I'm going to pause it here and start up a... Actually, I'm going to call it here and start up a new session in a little bit. So we have another opponent here, Flipetto. King Jack 9-4, continuing with the power position. We get a pretty nice flop. He leads, and I'm going to raise to keep control. Here we're going to check behind, but he leads. And this completes a strong portion of his range. 8-10, 10 queen, gets there, along with the flush. We don't have enough odds to try and fill up, so we'll let this one go. And it looks like he might sit out. Nope. King Jack 3-6, enough equity. We're going to check raise here. And just use the amount of turn cards, the amount of scary turn cards. We do pick up 2 pairs, so we're definitely going to bet that. And now the Jack, we're going to value bet here. I don't think straights can raise here. The only thing that can really raise is a flush. But I definitely can see calls from a weaker 2 pair. So I definitely like this value bet on the river. Doesn't look like he has much. And he folds. Nope. Ace 4, 7, 8. Great starting hand in position. He 3-bets. We have the nut low draw here, so I'm going to raise it. There's many turn cards that should scare him into checking, gives the option. And we can definitely get in bets on quite a few cards that improve our equity, such as this one. He leads and we raise. I think ace 4 combos that have us beat would have 3-bet the flop. So I think his most likely range is some type of ace 5 combo with a flush draw. In this case, he just had a naked ace 5. Ace 9 deuce, definitely enough equity to 3-bet here. I'm just going to jam this. He's quite short. If he has a king, then so be it. He ends up having queen 6, 8. And we hit a flush, so we take that one down. I'm going to just pause it here and wait for the next opponent. So he sits back down and we resume playing. We flop a strong low and a gut shot. We're going to raise here because we should have a fair share of equity. And there's a lot of turn cards that will scare him into giving us the option. Also because a lot of people in 08 like to follow the flow and try to check raise. Here he leads, and we have enough equity to call down and pray. And he ends up having a queen high flush draw. 3, 7, 4, 8, worth a call. We're going to check raise here. And probably check call on some low draws. Here, king's a great card to bet with. The deuce doesn't really help all that much, so we're going to value bet here. Deuce 6, 7, 10 worth a raise. We don't have a great hand, but we're going to go ahead and bet to try and see 2 streets free. I'm going to check behind here. And I'm going to call this river if he bets for two reasons. One, I might be good, and two, I want to keep him checking him at all times. But he does check. I'll check it behind, and I take it down. King den deuce 4. Easy defend. We get counterfeited, so we're just going to let it go here. Ten deuce 3 6 worth a raise. We missed the flop completely. No real value, so we're just going to fold. Queen queen ace deuce worth a 3-bet. He capped it pre-flop, so ace ace is a big part of his range. However, I'm still very happy with our equity, which should be pretty good. I'm going to check raise a low on the turn and just check call down if not. The 3 comes, so I'm just going to go into check call mode. Hopefully it hits a low on the river. It doesn't, so I'm just going to check call. And he ends up having just ace king. Staying with aggression, raise it with queen king 3-7. He leads. I'm just going to call the flop here. His range is pretty wide. We could raise the turn here as a free showdown if unimproved play, but given the last hand, I think he's going to try and power his way through, so I'm just going to call down. And an easy call with 2 pair now. And it's Jack 5 8 8. Jack Queen 5 6. I'm going to check call here and let him hang himself if he's behind. He only has $80 here. I'm going to check raise and try and get it in. Against other opponents, I just lead, but his aggression has increased in the last few hands. And he hits his low. 5-5-6 queen. It's very at the bottom of the range. I expect if we limp, he's going to raise it. So I'm just going to let this one go. There's no real value in playing this hand. Ace King 8-9, worth a call. He folds, so we might be toning the aggression down a little bit. Therefore, I'm going to raise this up and keep the pressure on. He leads, and we don't have enough equity to continue on, so we just fold. Ace 9 deuce 6, enough equity to 3-bet. Scary board, but we should have a large share of equity against a random hand. We would have kept firing if the turn was a brick. Ace 10 queen 3. We did flop the nut low here, so we're going to fire through. Now he raises. This doesn't really define his range for me. He could be doing this with as bad as ace 3, 3-5, 5-6. I'm going to raise it here on the turn. He leads, and we only have ace queen high, and I don't see him folding, so I'm going to call here. It turns out he was free rolling us, but I still think it's a good hand to raise against his deuce range. Just going to call here, hit nothing, we're going to fold. Queen 3, 5, 6, raise it up. We have a mediocre low, flush draw, bottom pair, but he folds. Ace 3, 3, 8. If I had a higher card than the 8, I might have 3-bet here. Here I see no reason for betting. I'm just going to check call and hope he decides to bluff a worse hand. The heart shouldn't really change anything. I suspect flush draw to bet the flop. He checks and has a jack though. Queen queen a7 worth a raise. We hit middle set, so what we're going to do is call here to give us the option of raising if it pairs up our bricks hard. And now we're going to call down unless improved, because he could easily be free rolling us here. And if he checked on the river, I would have put in a value bet. Ace 5, 7, 9. Here we pick up a decent amount of equity. I don't think we can really push him off the hand, so I think check call is best here, allowing us an option of 1 or 2 bets on the turn. This is somewhat a scary card, although it improves our equity. I'm going to check call here and then check call the river unimproved. And he checks behind. Queen, queen, 9-5. Again, it's not that great, but we have position and we're going to fire away. He 3-bets. So now we flop top set on a very dry board. I'm going to call here and raise this card. Hopefully we get action from Jack and allow a 4-bet to get in. And hopefully the 10 hit him, Ace King. I don't really see the point of slow playing on the turn because draws don't pay off on the river. And he might 3-bet with a Jack or even as a bluff. Ace 9, 10, 4, lots of equity. He 3-bets. Now I flop a gut shot and a couple backdoor draws. I'm going to raise here because I don't think Jack should make a large part of his range. He 3-bets and I'm going to cap here trying to keep control. He leads again and I improved. I think it's close. I'm just going to call down. And he did have Ace Jack. Actually, looking back, I think it's a fairly easy fold on the turn. Chalk that one up as a big mistake on my part. King 6, 8, 9, just being out of position with no backup low or any real high equity. We're just going to give up on the hand. Queen Deuce 3, 5 worth the raise. Not enough equity here, so we're going to give up. Jack 9, 4, 6 double suited. We have an alright low draw. The 5 makes us straight, but it's more likely that we get counterfeited, so a check call is good. We improve in equity on the turn. Here I'm going to lead, as I don't think a check raise will work all that often. And he actually had us in pretty terrible shape, so I definitely like the check call even more. Queen 10, 10, 4, not enough equity. Just dump it pre-flop. Deuce, Deuce 4, 5. I'm just going to check it. I'm going to lead with my weak flush draw and runner, runner, low straight outs here. He raises, and the turn diminishes our equity quite a bit. We're getting some pretty bad odds to our flush, and it might not even be good, so we can just comfortably fold here. Nine Deuce 5, 6 worth the raise. We flop trips and a decent low draw. I'm going to fast play this because it's a draw heavy board. Eight, 8, 7, 9. I muck this hand most of the time. Sometimes I'll make the call like here. Here we're going to check call. He ends up checking behind. And I'm going to bet here because I'd probably check call. I think it also forces out some better hands like better 9s, pocket 10s, or jacks. If he raises or calls, I'll just shut down. King Jack 7, 9, not that great, but with position it definitely justifies the raise. He 3-bets. There's $90 in the pot. Now with the low already out there, it cuts our equity in half, unless he has some type of 2-pair or a set. But it'll be a big guessing game, and 2 of our straight outs might flush his hand. So this is a spot where we can fold with ease. 10 Jack 6, 7. I'm just going to give up if he bets. Now I'm going to fire. I think if he has anything worth calling on the turn, he would have bet the flop. Jack Jack 8, 9. So here I could definitely check behind, but betting here gives us a better chance at taking the pot down immediately or seeing 2 cards cheap. So we're going to do that and take our free card. The river's a brick, and it completes a lot of low draw combinations, so we're just going to fold. Queen, Queen, Jack 3 double suited. I'm going to lead here just to see what happens. I always liked getting in bets on the cheaper streets to find out information. He flatted, so I'm going to continue on the turn and then value the river. I don't really see him bluffing here much if I check. And with the low busting, we might get looked up rather late. But he folds. Queen, Queen, 10, 4, keeping the pressure on. And he folds again. Deuce 4, 5, 6, definitely worth a call. Now here we have a low rep, and any low will give us the nut low, so I think there's definitely enough equity to raise. It also allows us to increase our fold equity if a low club came down and here we're just going to jam as we hit the wheel on the river. So we ended up having Queen 3, 5, 7, which is extremely light. I think it's a must fold on the flop with that board texture. In this hand, Ace 7, 7, 3, we completely miss. He leads. Just going to fold there. Jack Queen 9, 3 is kind of weak, but it seems like I'll get paid if I hit because his fold button seems a little dusty, so I don't mind it. He checks behind, so I'm going to fire on the turn. And here I'm going to check call just the way he played it. He checks behind, and he called with an open end and low on the turn. And our jacks are still good. King Jack 3, 7. It's really weak. Sometimes I'll raise it. Here I'm just going to let it go. 6, 6, 10, 8. I'm going to throw this way as well. King, King, 10, Queen. He 3-bets. And since the ace makes up pretty much the majority of his range, we're going to give that away. 9, 4, 5, 6. We'll defend. Now with this wrap, I'm actually going to check raise. He's been comp betting quite a bit, and we only have to dodge an ace 4 or ace 5. He does raise me here. There's no point in 3-betting. I'm just going to check call down unless I improve and hope that I take a share. The king's a brick, and we're just going to check call down. So we actually had the same low and 2 pair. We're going to try something new here. I'm going to limp here and see if he gives us a free flop in position. And we're going to bet if he checks, and then fold if he raises. And he folds. 10 deuce 3 4, defend, complete brick, and we're just going to fold it. Queen Queen 7 9 double suited. We have the power of the puck, so we're going to raise it. Here we're going to bet for 2 streets. If he raises, we're going to 3-bet. Instead, he just folds. He limps, so we're going to punish him. King deuce 4 6 double suited hits enough. Plus we can represent a better range, so I think this is a great time to do this play. Here we picked up a little bit more equity, plus with the representation of strong aces, makes this very profitable here. Queen 10 5 7, not a great hand, but in position we can get away with it. Here we're going to bet for 2 streets. The king gives us a gut shot draw. I'm going to check behind and hopefully catch a good card. Now since my flush is a little hidden, I can see I'm betting a wide range here and underestimating my hand, so I'm going to put in a value raise. He did have a higher flush, but I still like that bet in the long run. It'll definitely be profitable against his whole range. Queen 9 4 6. I'm going to lead with the 6. There's a lot of draws that can complete, and we're not too happy if it gets checked back. Now here the 8 brings a low. Now hands such as 4 5, even 5 7 are free rolling us. So I think it's kind of close. We want to bet to dissuade flush draws from calling, but we want to protect ourselves. So I think that the best thing to do is just check call here and check call as we have enough equity. He checks behind. He ended up having a higher 6, and we caught the low. Ace Queen King 3. Strong raise. And we're going to comp bet here. Now with this check raise, he's representing good strength as it's a hard board to bluff at, and given his past history of the trip jacks, I don't see 3-betting for the option being a good play. Now I'm going to raise it here, as it's very likely that we can scoop with a straight or flush on the river with the nut low. I missed, but I'm still going to bet. Not for fold equity, but because I want to bet my full range here. So if I have a full house, I'm going to still fire. And if I have just the nut low with no pair, I'm still going to fire. Jack 4 5 7. We're going to try and check raise here, as there's no real bad card that'll hurt us on the turn. Here I don't think anything is really going to call here, unless he has a deuce low. So I'm going to check and hope he takes the bait. And here I'm going to fire in case he gets curious with 2 pair or a bad low. Ace King 10 Jack plays well, raise that up in position. And he folds there. Queen Deuce 4 6, defend it, we brick, and let go again. King 10 Deuce 4, and he 3-bets again. Now here we could raise. That's a hard board to 3-bet. I'm going to opt to take a card and decide on the turn. And now we definitely have enough equity to raise. Now I don't see him leading here without some type of low. I think raising will just put us in unfavorable situations. So I think the best thing to do here is just call in case he has the ace high flush. Queen 10 4 5. We pick up a double gut shot, a 9 and a 7, as well as a mediocre low. I'm going to take a stab at it. Here I think we have enough fold equity and value to bet here, given that he just called the flop. And now we're just going to value bet the river. Maybe getting a light call since the low busted. Ace Deuce 8 9. Easy raise. He leads, and I'm going to raise because I have a good share of equity, and it's not as likely as past situations that he'll check, but he will from time to time. Here he leads again, and I'm going to raise to get value from straights because I do have a free roll flush draw, and bet the river in case he has something silly like ace 6. Ended up having king king ace 7, which I think is terrible. I think it's an easy check call. King 3 6 8. Now the jack doesn't really hurt us all that much. I'm going to check to induce a bluff, and now I'm just going to fire as it's more likely that he'll call us late with the second king out there. Ten Jack 4 5. He 3-bets. It's less likely that he has an immediate low with the ace out there, but if he holds a deuce 3 or 4, we're in rough shape, and if we hit 2 pair, it could easily flush us, so this is an easy fold. Ace 9 3 4. He limps, and we have enough equity to raise out of position. Going to lead here. He raises, and I'm going to 3-bet, given that he knows that's less likely for us to have an immediate low, and could easily be raising with a 5-7 or 4-5. Here I have the nut low, and he only has $90. I'm just going to bet and ram it in, as I think deuce 3 will definitely check it behind. He could have had. Instead he has a set with a 5 low, and we end up going runner runner straight. So that was a pretty interesting session. I was able to get in a few spots to show just how important being aggressive in position is. My next video will be on limit 6 max isolation raises. So this is Shabam Bam from stockspoker.com, and take care.